Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Pros, and this is Michael Giorgio, your host and co-founder of Imaginovation. My special guest with me here today is the founder of 3DFS Software-Defined Electricity, located in Pittsboro, North Carolina, not too far from us, we're in Raleigh, a company being at the forefront with innovative digital electricity saving and efficiency technology, who also recently won the NC Tech Startup Showcase, in which 6 startups demonstrate technology they hope is future changing, which is an amazing award to receive. Please welcome Chris Doerfler. This is Tales from the Pros, where business leaders and influencers share their stories of inspiration, struggles, and successes. And I'm your host, Michael Giorgio. Chris, I appreciate you being with me here today, man. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for having me. I appreciate it.
I know we've been trying to connect and get you on the show. I know we're all doing some big things and just super busy, man. So thanks again. Thanks for your time.
Of course. Happy to do it.
So Chris, tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey on how you essentially began 3DFS and developing such an innovative product, which I believe is at the forefront of energy efficiency and electricity, and it's just super innovative, man. So give us a little background on that.
Sure. The engineering group has a history of some pretty significant intellectual property and some pretty large exits. And it started, some of the more significant ones would be the wireless internet and spread spectrum communication, which exited to Texas Instruments. And then there was the single electron transistor that exited to General Dynamics. And it is, left us sitting around thinking it's great to build and sell technologies so other people can play with them, but it's more fun to build and grow a company out of it. And so in doing a little bit of semiconductor research and into solar cells, we started to do some research into electricity itself and really discovered that the way in which it is measured is an analog methodology and hasn't been updated since Nikola Tesla's time. So that was the seed that we needed to plant, and we have been working on delivering our solution ever since.
And did you have any other companies before 3DFS, or did you just always see yourself as this entrepreneurial guy? You want to create this pretty awesome product. You saw there was some gray areas in the energy and electricity space. So how did you really? What really geared you to starting this company? Was it just something that you always had an itch for when you were
Sure.
little?
For me, entrepreneurialism is really what I am drawn to ever since I can remember, really, much to my parents' chagrin. I I left UNC in search of something. I didn't know what it was. So
Mhm.
I got into real estate. I got into finance. I started a company on more of a non-profit fundraising company. And there was a precursor to Airbnb. There were just a lot of startups that I was getting involved in, trying to make something happen. Um, my journey took me all over the country and in different parts of the world, and just didn't know what I wanted. I had my daughter in Oregon, and everything sort of changed after that, priorities,
Yeah.
etc. So I ended up moving back to North Carolina and getting quote real jobs. And then out of nowhere, I ran into a guy. We started a few companies, and that morphed into this opportunity with this engineering group. And really, in just embedding myself with the group and learning all of the innovative technologies and all of the approaches that are just so unique, I fell in love, and I've been here ever since. I was lucky enough to find a group that is literally at the forefront of technology, the bleeding edge, and I was able to recognize that, and I have not let go ever since.
That's cool. And me and you have spoken for a while now. We've communicated on LinkedIn and we've met before. And I always found you guys very interesting, Chris, because I love interviewing founders of companies and just leaders that solve problems And I feel that when you say forefront, I really believe that because you guys are solving problems. I mean, you're really trying to help people. You're not just kind of some company that does what a lot of these other companies do, right? You're not you're not some pizza shop. Nothing going against pizza shops. Hey, I mean, I love pizza, man, but you know what I mean? You guys are always trying to solve these problems, and I really love it. And I think that it just makes the story that much more interesting, and just your background and capabilities and what you guys are trying to do to, trying to do for other people and provide value. So I think that's amazing stuff. So, Chris, were you able to, in the beginning or even through the years, were you able to bootstrap 3DFS or secure investors and funding to speed up the growth of the company? So tell us a little bit about that process because, for me and you have talked about my company, right? For us, we were bootstrapped. We never had any funding, nothing like that. So it did take some time for it to grow quicker. It just takes time to build that brand. So what happened with you guys in the beginning, or even just throughout the years?
Yeah, it's kind of unique. We definitely bootstrapped. It's not a traditional bootstrap, but because our technology lies in a very specific space, it I mean, frankly, it requires a lot of money to play in this space traditionally. We have a technological advantage that provides an insurmountable business advantage, and we've had to leverage that the best we can as we grow the company. Our vision is for 3DFS is to not accept any outside investment in the core company, rather to take this computing methodology and embed it into products and then build companies out of those product lines. So it's taken us, because that's our vision, it's taken us a lot of discipline to be able to bootstrap and to not be put in the position where we would be required to go get funding from an investor or an investment. And that itself has been, I mean, that has clearly been the most challenging part of growth as we've gone. But it has put us in an incredible position today now that we've begun to have success. Yeah.
So did you ever get, I mean, was there ever times that you had that itch or that urge to get funding because you guys have this unique product, right? So you probably had a lot of investors that were, I mean, coming to you. I mean, I'm still very new into the investment game. We, like I said, we never received investors, but I've spoken to a few of them. I know sometimes these investors, they'll come to you if they see that you guys you're kind of at the cornerstone of a certain industry or certain product or whatever it may be. They'll come to you and they'll try to tempt you into giving them some type of equity, and But
Sure.
did you guys ever have any of those opportunities, or not really?
We certainly had a lot of opportunities, and as you mentioned, the interest was, it raised and lowered. I mean, there were certainly times
Yeah.
where we knew it would be easier, and the thing about entrepreneurship is it pushes you to the brink, and when you're at the brink, you have a choice. You can give up or you can continue. Like for us, it was continue. Everything we've done, we've done with our own hands, from setting up the floors, building the walls of our facility. I mean, we don't give up, and I think that's a key component to bootstrapping in general. Is if you can't make money to do that task, then you need to figure out how to make money to do something else, to do that task. I mean, it never ends. It's a, it's for us. I think that's our biggest advantage. Really, is that we don't see failure. We have a vision, and we're going to see it through, and that's really the big driver for us.
And you're gonna always find a way to execute that vision, man. And I love hearing that, Chris, because you've probably heard a lot of these successful entrepreneurs and CEOs and leaders of companies, like for example, like Mark Cuban or some of these guys in the Shark Tank. They say, it's even though they, they're on that show and they are offering funding, they say the key to successful company is not just asking for money. So
Yeah.
do you notice that it's a lot of these companies, these businesses, these startups, they're always just seeking money, but they don't
Mhm.
understand the business side of it, right? They don't understand how to grow a business
Yeah.
during tough times. How do you do it with no money? right? Because
Yep.
it's hard to seek funding. It's hard to get investment. It's not easy to do that, right? You have to give a huge chunk of your your company percentage away of your company. So it's not easy to do that. But at the same token, I like what you said, man, because it shows that you guys are going to do what you're doing, whatever it takes to make this thing successful. It's really good to go through those phases. It's really good to go through those struggles because that really defines you as an entrepreneur. That defines you, and that's gonna take you guys a really long way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really is the key. It's for us, we know, we see the vision, we see the path forward, and a lot of other people don't. And that doesn't mean we're wrong. That means that we have a lot of convincing to do. And that's been the last 7 years. But the advantage of taking that approach, even though it's brutal, I lost my 30s, I have much less hair now, is
So do I. So you're good.
we're in a position now to go to investors and say, it's not your money I need your network and your access. And that's a much different approach to investors because money spends. That's not a problem. Like now that we have the advantage we do, money can be gotten easily, but it's what is the value of the relationship that we're getting when we get that money? Because if it's just to get equity in our company, we're not interested. If it's to propel this forward, then we can talk. And that's a great advantage.
That's great advice, man. Great advice for just other companies that have a pretty stable company and they're looking to network. I'll just say kind of network with investors. So there's some great tips. Thank you for sharing that. So Chris, also getting more knee deep into the 3DFS product and just solution. How were you able to essentially ensure the accuracy and efficiency of the data, the computing data of all these control systems in our homes, such as heat and AC, right? How do you ensure that that it's accurate and efficient?
Sure. Well, here's really the core of the innovation behind our technology is the ability to digitally measure electricity. Now, in the market today, everybody in our labs, in the DoD, in any country on the planet, they use an analog method of measurement for electricity. And fundamentally, like that's not accurate. Like you have zero trust value that can be an accurate measurement because it's a guess at the end of the day. It's an educated, calculated guess, but it's a guess.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to digitally measure electricity does a lot for us. But the main thing in this particular context is we're able to pull data from a sensor and also pull the electrical signature of that sensor at the same time. And when we do that, we have an unmistakable, not only data point for the what is the sensor measuring, but we have verification that the sensor was operating correctly when that data point was built. We also recalibrate after every sample, and we're sampling every 6 nanoseconds. So the focus on the data acquisition is really the advantage that we have. When you have it's error-free data is what our advantage is. And when you acquire error-free data in a system, like you can then define the time you need that data because you don't worry about whether it's correct or not. And that ability, having 100% confidence that we can extract real data, allows us to work at any speed that we would like. And because we can work at any speed and we have a computing methodology that can process any amount of data, like it gives us the keys to the kingdom. We're able to analyze and build models and do corrective actions all instantaneously at the microsecond level. And that's really the key is the measurement and understanding of electricity, because without it, you can't verify that the data you're pulling is in fact what it says it is. That may be little
No,
bit.
that's a great explanation. I mean, is the are you tracking? I mean, are you doing this just for homeowners, or are you doing for businesses as well and buildings and?
Yeah, so that's the transformative nature behind this today. Like nobody has the ability to acquire error-free data. And so like where this technology is focused with software-defined electricity. We're going into mission-critical facilities. We're going into high consumers of power and places where cybersecurity is critically important. But the advantage of this computing methodology is that it's flexible and it can be embedded into residential electronics and provide functionality and data services that don't exist today. So it's the real innovation, from a business perspective, is it's opening up markets that have never existed, and that's really the key. So with this company that we're spinning off, our focus is to apply this computing methodology to all sorts of control systems and control products to upgrade existing infrastructure and allow it to operate in true real time, which is the vision, and that's applicable to residential, commercial, industrial, laboratories, government, municipalities, everywhere.
Wow. And how do you guys how does 3DFS hold these energy companies accountable, Chris, for inaccurate data when it comes to like homeowners and businesses using energy and electricity? Because for a homeowner like me, I get a bill, from Duke Energy, and I don't know if the energy I used was actually accurate. Like, what if it was just some made up number? What if, and they're just kind of collecting my money, and and this is happening for millions of people. So it's pretty crazy, right? And this is why I love what you guys are doing here. So how do you really hold these energy companies accountable? Do you ever get slack for that, or any? I mean, how do give me your thought process on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we have is transformational, both for consumers but also for utilities, and that creates a bit of a juggling act. Uh, Utilities are in the business of selling a product that they cannot accurately measure, but then consumers require the purchasing of that product regardless of whether they can measure it or not. Right? So it's the perfect market to just not really know what you're doing and still be profitable. Like, and as the utilities transition to a more service-based model, like accuracy of electricity measurement is critical. It's required. And so as we begin to work with some of the utilities that we've run, and also on the customer side of the meter, it's very consultative. We're very open about what we can do. We're very open with the utility. With every installation that we have, we mention to the utility we're going to be doing this, and the goal really is to open up that visibility. One of the advantages that we have specifically is um, the software defined electricity delivers perfect electricity to the client. And that's going to be an energy savings, that's stability, that's improvement, that's cybersecurity. There's a lot of benefits immediately,
Right.
irrespective of the data. The data is almost secondary at this point. And so once we have delivered clean electricity and they start to get the ROI and they start to get the savings, we then work with them on the data portion. There is literally nothing in a power network that we can't identify. Every device, even if it's 100 televisions or motors made by the same robots with the same components, all at the same time, or pretty close, there's tolerance and variance differences in those individual components. There's wire thickness and solder differences and placement differences. And all of those collectively make a unique electrical signature that can be identified with 100% accuracy. And tracking that signature over time provides insight into each individual device that is consuming electricity. And so the future there is, and it's an inescapable future, is 100% predictive power networks. And the utilities that we're speaking to understand this. And it's a lot easier to be at the forefront of that than to have a customer come to you afterwards and have you explain why their technology is showing them something different. And
Gotcha.
so we've really tried to head that off so that we don't have any awkward confrontations. But
Yeah, yeah.
but as we
I can imagine.
yeah, as we expand into more product development and mass manufacturing, et cetera, it's bound to happen because we can't talk to every utility first.
Yeah, no, I know. And for example, like Duke Energy, right? So you think Duke Energy would probably, I mean, instead of being face to face and having a like you said, a tough conversation or what have you, you don't want to go through that, right? So they're big companies like Duke Energy, they would probably come to you to use your solution, right? I would assume, or even potentially in the future, maybe even try to acquire 3DFS.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like what our big vision with Duke and some of the other utilities is really opening the door because again, it's like the whole infrastructure from generation all the way down to consumption is operating like at a loss today. They're losing more electricity than generating, and that's an unsustainable model. And so the opportunity that we provide is distributing this throughout Duke's territory or whoever's territory will allow them to uh, generate more than they're losing, like by 2 to 1. And that opportunity for them is a few things. One, it's less fuel that needs to be burned to provide electricity, but it's also an increased amount of capacity for or without economic development and infrastructure investment. They don't have
Hmm.
to add new transformers or lines or anything. So, and then in addition, there's all these ancillary services with electric vehicles and so on and so forth, renewables, that they are then able to control at a much finer level. The big vision for the grid, the big vision for utilities and for consumers and everything is to have a transactive energy platform, an actually software-based grid where we can trade and buy electricity with our neighbors and with the utilities and whatever. That's the vision. To get there is going to take decades, if not more, and it's going to require control of electricity. So when we talk to the utilities and we talk to the big players, we just paint the future picture. Where are we going? We need to show what's possible, but also paint what the future looks like with this technology, with control of electricity and accurate measurement. And usually from there we can move forward. But it's definitely a slow process. They're not.
Yeah, no, I mean, energy is evolving like crazy, and I like that because it seems like you guys are. I mean, you're not necessarily leveraging each other. I guess you are. I mean, you're collaborating with each other to provide the best solution because you can't do it alone. You guys need these utility companies. They need you, right? They need these software, innovative companies, technology companies like you guys to help them, right? Because they specialize in something else. You guys specialize in something else. So it's a good seems like it's a good collaborative effort to provide the best solution for consumers and what have you. So this kind of goes into my next question, Chris. How do you see energy evolving and trending? I know you dabbled a little bit into it, but how do you see it? Where do you see it going? Are there more positive opportunities due to like artificial intelligence arising, or are there more threats?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big question. Um, so I guess there's a couple ways to look at it. One, so where has it gone? Like, how do we get to where we are? Um, and then where are we going to go from here? We originally thought that we would just continue to sell more and more and more electricity. And it's only been recently that we realized we're selling less and less of it. We're getting better. Energy efficiency is becoming more widespread. Um,
Right.
that's that's stimulated the idea that we can get rid of coal plants, we can get rid of natural gas, well, maybe not natural gas, but fossil fuel plants. We can open up renewables and nuclear, etc. Like, the challenge that comes with all of that is, regardless of where the electricity is coming from, it could be a coal plant, it could be a solar panel. At the end of the day, the electricity itself needs to be controlled. And when the electricity is controlled, efficiencies are gained throughout the entire system. We're talking about controlled electricity at the generation point will nearly double the amount of available electricity from the natural process already, right? From a transmission and distribution perspective, transforming electricity, like from one voltage to another, we can do at less than a 2% loss. So that's staggering amount of loss in temperature in the grid, in the transmission and distribution. And then even converting back and forth, you hear solar inverters and battery and inverters. The inversion process itself, going from AC to DC, today is done at a 60% efficient rate, and tomorrow is a 98% efficient rate. So not only is it improvement in energy availability, but because this is a computing system embedded into the interacting with electricity, maintaining balance and synchronization at the microsecond level, you have flexibility to the grid. You have resiliency. It's a layer of resiliency. No matter how the loads are used on the consumer side or how much fluctuation is upstream, it will always
Hmm.
be digitally perfect power because we have this computing embedded in. And all that opens up not only stability and resiliency, but again, modeling. So modeling of substations, modeling of generation, modeling of distribution, modeling of consumption. Like, it works into exactly what I said earlier, the transactive energy platform, the ability to sell electricity, to generate electricity at optimum efficiency, at optimum balance. And that's the future. It's all digital control, predictive analytics. Like, none of this can be done without artificial intelligence. I mean, it's there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all of that comes into play. Some more advantages of our particular technology, as we embed it in each of these places, like, you're able to acquire data that just hasn't existed before. So in the future, we can build models of electricity consumption between cultures and even between state lines and grids. Every culture even uses electricity different, and we can examine that. So, I mean, there's all sorts of research and products and just a whole bevy of markets that are going to be built around this. 10, 12 years ago, no one knew what a smartphone was. And today they're just ingrained in our society. In 10 years, this technology will radically transform the energy industry, every bit of it, top to bottom. And we won't even recognize some of it. Like,
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chris.
mhm.
So jumping a little bit back into just your overall entrepreneurial journey, what struggles did you really have to go through, Chris, during your entire journey, and how did you really overcome them? Because we all know that starting a business is hard. We all know creating a product is hard, and selling it to the market, and getting a return on it, and we know business is difficult, especially doing it for, you said you've been doing it now for almost 7 years, just like our company. We actually going to be 7 years in a few months. It's just a lot of grinding, right? You talked about how difficult it is, and a lot of hard work and sacrifice. So, what struggles did you and your team, or even just you, go through?
Yeah, for me personally, um, I had to overcome a lot for this. This is not my natural subject. I had to learn all of this. There were communication problems from the beginning. This is advanced electrical engineering, advanced data science, advanced computer science, and they're all inextricably linked. And my job, falling in love with this technology, is to learn all of this as best I can and then go to knowledgeable people and try to convey this information. And the first thing I learned is I have to not care at all what people think of me. Like, I mean, I learned that so
Yeah.
fast because the sheer amount of negativity when you're trying to introduce a new concept, particularly in a stoic industry that hasn't changed for over a century, is just outright rejection, and sometimes even just straight up making fun of you. And that's, at first it was hard because I felt very passionately that I have something that they needed to hear. But what I learned is I had to be better at communicating it, and I had to be persistent. I can't tell you how many doors I've opened from being politely persistent. And that's probably been the biggest key to our success. I mean, even with the article that we got into Vox recently with David Roberts. I contacted David Roberts probably 4 times in 2015, 5 times in 2016, 5 times in 2017, and it wasn't until 2018 that he took notice, and that's been enormous for us, So that's really the big thing. On top of, oh, actually, I should put in here work-life balance. I hear a lot about this, and I don't really know what that is. I suspect it is important. Like when the last 7 years, like I I feel that probably the biggest personal struggle I've had is trying to balance, being a father with being a startup founder. That's a very difficult challenge, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of practice and a lot of listening to you know kids who cannot communicate their feelings, and trying to decipher what they're saying. So that's probably the biggest personal challenge. I think we've hit a pretty good homeostasis here, but that took some time too.
A lot of probably a lot of time management. I'm assuming as well with the family.
Oh yeah, yeah, and there's inevitable disappointment. But the lesson that I have, my daughter has probably taken better than my son. My son's much younger. Is it's worth it in the end. Like if you have a
Yeah.
dream and you go for it. I mean, even if I fail, she has literally watched me for most of her life. She's 11 now, so 7 of 11 years. Watch me go after this, and if I don't succeed, the technology will. Like, I mean, I know that for sure. So, I don't have anything to lose here, and that's a good feeling.
Well, you have a lot of fight in you, Chris. I don't see you not succeeding. So
I hope not.
yeah, change your vocabulary.
Yeah, right, right, right. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's I when I look at the future, it's only success. Sometimes, actually, not sometimes. I tend to not be the best at calculating time. Sometimes I'm way too soon. Sometimes I'm way too late. But I tend to be right. So I know I'm going to be successful with this. I believe it. I feel it every single day. But
There you
yeah,
go.
uh, you know.
That's what I want to hear, man. That's what I want to hear. So, and this goes into the, like, just kind of closing out the pot this episode. I always ask the three
Mhm.
hows. So, Chris, how do you define failure? How do you define entrepreneurship? And how do you define success?
Oh, failure is giving up. Yeah, easy. If you give up, like you failed, like that's easy. Entrepreneurship. I would say that entrepreneurship is seeing a solution to a problem that exists, and making it come to fruition is really what that is. Like I th- yeah, yeah, that's it. I mean, there's a lot you have to unpack in there. Like I see a lot of people who have wonderful ideas, but the ideas aren't going to make a difference in the world in a way that you can make money, right? So there's always, at the end of the day, you have to be able to
Yeah,
sell whatever you're doing, but it's got to have a need, it's got to have a fit, and you've got to be able to communicate it. Like those are the things that are needed. Um, and success, I think success lies in the pursuit. And I mean, even yeah, success is always going forward, always continuing. Never accepting that you can't move forward. The path that you may have taken might lead to a dead end, but you have to backtrack and go forward a different way. And as long as that mentality is there, I think success is inevitable. Um, but it's always going forward, always progressing, always bringing people with you, your team, your company, everything. And I guess that's how I would define it.
great. I love asking those last three questions because sometimes I'll get a similar answer with some different people, some people, but sometimes I get a very different answer. And I love how you talk about success in regards to just moving forward and progress. So that's great, man. Thanks for sharing that as well. So, Chris, where can everyone find you? Your website and social media handles?
Yeah. So 3dfs.com is the website for software defined electricity. The Twitter handle is just at 3dfs_power. Mine personal Twitter handle is @Doerfler, which is Doer, F as in Frank, Ler. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me. LinkedIn as well. I'm on. I just looked my name up. And please reach out. I am in the point now where I am trying to build my network as much as possible and to meet as many people in this industry as possible, because we have a really big vision, and it's going to take a lot of people to achieve it.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for being a part of this podcast and sharing your story with us. And I'm very thankful. And yeah, guys, just everyone connect with Chris if you can. And then you saw his website and his social media handles. Be sure to reach out to him, connect with him. And it's all about growing your network. So thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And this is your host, Michael Giorgio, on Tales from the Pros. And until next time, thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mike.
Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow our social media. There are links somewhere around here. But we really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the support. And I'm going to be giving you awesome content continuously. And we look forward to seeing you soon.